So you can have this exponential impact on shareholder value by doing these acquisitions. And so, that's the bit I like, is that you can now go out and do stuff without needing money.
Welcome to Monday Mornings with Michelle, the new business podcast. Whether you're kicking off your day or kickstarting your business, Michelle is going to kick your ass into next week with the essential fours: strategy, systems, support, and state of mind. Now, welcome to center stage, Michelle Nedelec.
Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I am super glad that you're here with us today because I have an amazing guest here for you today, Jeremy. Jeremy, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Nice to meet you, Michelle.
Awesome. And you are joining us from where today?
I'm in Dubai, slightly warmer than Calgary, I think.
Awesome. You don't really have a native Dubai accent. I'm going to point you out on that one.
No, I'm a Brit, but I haven't lived in the UK for quite some time. I lived 12 years in Singapore, so I think I've even lost a bit of my British accent now. But yeah, the most British thing about me is my passport.
Awesome. I'll have to ask you if you managed to see any of the Formula One while you were in Singapore, but we'll get to that in a minute. Give us a 5,000-foot view of who you are and what you love to do.
Yeah, so look, I'm an entrepreneur, born and bred, started at a very young age, and left school at 15 to pursue an entrepreneurial dream that ultimately collapsed around my ears when I was 19, which was a good dose of humility at a young age. I think it was quite a valuable experience. And do you know, I was having lunch with somebody today and actually said the biggest thing that taught me was that when you're running a business and you're in trouble, it feels like you're on a tightrope, and that experience made me realize the tightrope is only 6 inches off the ground. And so if everything you've ever dreamed of is on the other end of that tightrope, which by the way, it's not, but anyway, if everything you ever dreamed of is on the other end of that tightrope, and it's only 6 inches off the ground, why wouldn't you run? So when I kind of brushed myself off and started again, I've kind of had a sort of never say die attitude of kind of running at things full tilt, which has kind of served me relatively well over the years.
Awesome. I love that. So who are you working with now and what are you doing?
Yeah, so when I brushed myself off, I started a telecoms company, grew that relatively quickly, but discovered that I could acquire competitors without borrowing money from banks or putting in cash, because basically banks wouldn't lend me money and I didn't have any cash. So it was one of those necessity is the mother of invention situations. And I grew that company through a series of acquisitions quite quickly, and then sold it in 2006, and just had a couple of epiphanies, really. One of them is you don't make money running businesses, you make money when you sell them. That scaling through acquisition is the only way. Once you've got that first dose of organic growth out the way, it's the only way you can really move the dial, have that order of magnitude growth in a year. An acquisition is a great way of adding like another year's worth of revenue in an afternoon that you just can't really do with sales and marketing or team, which are the normal kind of levers that people are playing with. And so I decided after that I would just buy and sell companies, because I really enjoyed doing the deals. In entrepreneurship, I employed hundreds of people. I did lots of startups and things like that. And I kind of came, I guess, to the realization that I really enjoyed business and I really enjoyed entrepreneurship and creating value. But the staff and the customers kind of took all the joy out of it. And so if I could figure out a business that didn't involve staff or customers, that would be my kind of holy grail business. And so buying and selling companies where the company is the product and you buy the shares and sell the shares in the company kind of became a sweet spot. And I got quite prolific at it and did well over 100 transactions over a decade or so. I've been doing it for a couple of decades in total, and then discovered capital markets and taking companies public. And so since then, I've done a couple of IPOs, about 60 reverse takeovers or reverse mergers, which is where you take companies public by pushing a private company into a public company, and various other deals around that sort of space. So I guess my day job at the moment is identifying really great companies that would benefit from going public, because it's a very misunderstood thing. I think people always think it's way beyond reach, or it's not for me, or it's further down the line, or it's for raising money, or it's for exiting, and really it's none of those things. And so it's kind of identifying great companies that would sit well in the capital markets, which would be a great opportunity for investors to participate in, and taking them through that go public transaction. And obviously with my background in buying and selling companies, the quickest way to then add value to those businesses once they're listed is by helping them acquire other businesses to grow.
Nice. I love this conversation. The first time I ever heard of this conversation, it was like, you can what? My whole world opened up. I was like, I don't know what you just said, but I love that. And I had to know more. I can't say as I've ever acquired a company yet, but I'm still very much enamored by the idea. And I don't think a day goes by that I don't go, this would be a lot easier if we just bought somebody else's company out. So,
so I think the really big epiphany for me was this, having done startups, there's kind of there's kind of a no man's land or a lost 2 to 3 years at the beginning where you're, sorting out the website, the logo, getting your first customer, perfecting your product, all of that kind of stuff. And then you kind of get your inertia and it starts to kind of take off. And I guess buying a company, you just cut that 3 years out, and you've only got so many of those 3 years left in your life. There's only so many times you can do a startup for your mental health, I think, as much as anything else. So buying a company, I think, is a very useful way to just run the last 10 yards of the marathon, but still get a medal. And even if you pivot that business into the thing that you thought of in the shower that morning, at least you've got staff and customers and revenue and things that you can utilize to execute that business plan. And for growth, like I say, I think when there comes a stage in a business where the entrepreneur, if you're not careful, you get sucked into the day-to-day operations and you really become, a glorified salesperson or a glorified operations person in a business that you own, and it becomes a bit of a prison because you can't escape it. And I think M&A is a great way of moving up the ladder to kind of sit on the business instead of in it, so that you can focus your diary on, mergers, acquisitions, joint ventures, or an exit for the business, which are the things that are going to have that order of magnitude impact on shareholder value, and you're the shareholder, so it benefits you. Whereas if you stay stuck in the business, you're kind of really just doing a job. And I think, quite often entrepreneurs, they're creative, they love change. Businesses don't like that constant change and constant creativity. So really diverting that energy into something like deal making, I think, is a great way of keeping the entrepreneurial spirit alive, not grinding you down into some operational job, and also cutting out those kind of lost decades that you can sometimes get. I mean, I ran my telecoms company for 10 years, and you think about it, well, you're pretty pointless for the first 20 years of your life, and you're not very much use in the last 20 years of your life. So how many decades have you got in the middle of that, where you're really functional and not getting up 3 times a night to pee?
Does that make you an internal optimist?
I think I'm an optimist, but with a balanced view of my mortality.
Fair enough. So we will get into kind of your sweet spot and what you love to do now, but I'm going to back you up to a statement that you said very nonchalantly that I think so many entrepreneurs miss, and it breaks my heart, is you don't make money running a business, you make money selling a business. And it is so true. They're all trying to fight to make their wage, and it's like, okay, dude, that's a job. You have to start seeing this differently. So I know how I see it, but how do you see those growing years, if you want to put it that way, at that stage where the entrepreneur comes in and they're hustling, they're grinding, they're doing the thing? What kind of mindset should they have in that moment to get through that and move on?
Yeah, I learned this lesson late, and basically I thought that the key to wealth and financial freedom and success was building a great big business, empire building, creating income. What I now realize is income is just what you spend, and as your income increases, so does your lifestyle. And I think it was Oscar Wilde that says, "A man that lives within his means lacks imagination." So I think there's always the next thing and the bigger thing and the other thing you can buy or do or experience, and these things are made much easier and much more fun when you have some money. Zig Ziglar said, money's not important, but it's right up there with oxygen. So I don't think we should diminish the enjoyment that it can bring. But look, money doesn't change people; it magnifies them. So if you're a miserable bastard, you're going to be a really miserable bastard with money. If you're a happy person, you're going to be happy and have money. So it doesn't really change you, but it does give you options and choices, which are fantastic for you and your family, and does make life more comfortable. So I think I focused on income then I had a capital event. I sold a business, and capital events are really interesting because there's a concentration of income. It's a chunk of money that comes in one go. Now, if you start with nothing like I did, it's very hard to create capital events without having capital. You normally have to, the most common way I see is people buying a house, doing it up and selling it, or even buying a house and doing nothing with it, and the market goes up and they sell it and they create a capital event. But if you don't have money to start with, you can't really do that. So entrepreneurship is a great leveler, because literally you can be, the king or the street sweeper, and down to your effort, ingenuity, and smarts, you can be successful in business. And then that business creates value, and that value can then be capitalized upon and create the capital event. Now, when you get the capital event, you suddenly have money that works for you and creates income without you having to put anything into it. So it's that, it gets you out of the time for money trap. So now you have money that comes in that's not dependent on your time and input, if you do it right, because of course you can just stick it into another startup, or you can stick it into property and you have to deal with all the tenants and fixing boilers and stuff like that. But if you put it into a normal income generating portfolio, you can generate a passive income stream. That means that you not only have all your time back, because I think people forget how much time they're invested in their business, but you have this income stream that's not dependent on your time anymore. And then you're either very powerful or very dangerous. It comes back to types of people. So you can get the divorce, the Aston Martin, the alcohol problem, or you can go on and do bigger and better things. So it's your choice. You have time and money, which are the two things entrepreneurs never have. And I found that out a bit later than most, but I now realize that instead of trying to run a business for 20 years and create one massive capital event, the first time you sell a business, you're likely to screw something up because no one's done it before. Just like when you first sold a product, you had to learn how to sell the product and how to make it work. So what you want to really focus on, I believe anyway, is creating a series of small capital events that gradually build your wealth and give you the opportunity to basically get better and better at it. So my first half a dozen companies I probably sold for 6 figures, or even some sort of late 5-figure sort of sums before I started doing the 7-figure and 8-figure kind of transactions. And these were the stomping ground that prepared me for the bigger deals later on. But those capital events are really what create the financial freedom. So I believe as an entrepreneur, you should focus on, where is my next capital event coming from, or how do I take what I'm doing now and turn it into a capital event? So can I free up my time and create a pot of capital that will work for me instead of me having to work for it?
Nice. Love that. So talk to me about what you're looking for, in particular when you're looking for either mergers and acquisitions, if you're still doing that, or when you're looking at acquiring a company to go with an IPO.
Yeah, so it's a number of things. So I guess a sweet spot would be a company that would like to go public and acquire its competitors. So a business that's in a fragmented industry that's kind of sexy. So there are things like healthcare, food security, clean energy, those sort of areas that are quite popular at the moment. So businesses in that space where they can see an opportunity to grow by acquisition. So by acquiring a bunch of other companies, they feel they could dominate that sector. I'm not looking to run these businesses, so I'm looking for people that are already running them, that are excited about that industry, that know it and understand it. And I basically pay to take their company public in exchange for shares, and then help them go and buy a bunch of other companies. We have a huge community of entrepreneurs around the world called the Harbour Club. It's about 2,000 of us in pretty much every country in the world. And so if we have, say, a clean energy business and they're looking for, waste to energy plants, we can reach out into that community and say, we'd like to acquire waste to energy plants. What have you got? And we'll get a flood of inbound inquiries. The other project that we work on is something called Agglomeration. So Agglomeration is a trademark sort of governance structure that we came up with, which enables multiple small businesses to effectively share a common holding company, a public company. So they get the benefits of being a public company, like pitching for bigger contracts, attracting better talent, punching above their weight generally when they go into negotiations with people, getting liquidity in their shares, because obviously when you have a private company, your shares are worthless, because until you sell it, there's no crystallization of gain. In a public company, you can sell a few shares and go and buy a Porsche if you want to. So it gives entrepreneurs a whole bunch of freedom, as well as a platform to help them grow their business. And agglomerations tend to be perhaps the businesses that wouldn't be sexy enough to go public on their own, or maybe they wouldn't want to go public for all the scrutiny and everything you get as a public company. So they join one of these sort of umbrella organizations, which give them the benefits without perhaps some of the traditional headwinds. And they're the two main areas that I focus on. So for example, we have a company called MBH Corporation, which we listed in 2018. That's an agglomeration. 28 amazing small businesses have joined that group so far in the last 2 years. And it's now, this group of 28 companies in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, the UK, the US, and Canada. So all the English-speaking, English law countries, basically. And then we just listed a clean energy company called CMG Cleantech. It's listed on the Paris Euronext stock exchange. And that's a battery, solar, and hydrogen fuel cell company. And again, very acquisitive in the clean energy space. That's relatively new. It's about 200 million market cap so far and growing quite quickly. Really a really exciting business.
Fascinating. Okay, one, I have to start following you from, if nothing else, a stock perspective. And two, so are these conglomerates a mix of, I'm assuming, all similar companies, if not same but different?
So the clean tech business is focused on everything in the clean energy space, but actually MBH is kind of like a mini Berkshire Hathaway type of model in that it's just great businesses that have good cash flows, are very well established. The average age of a company in that group is 23 years old. And we have everything from, we have a real estate business, a construction services companies, we have education businesses, we have transportation businesses. So it's a real mixture of different types of companies in that 28 companies, but they tend to form in verticals. So you have one vertical with several companies in the same sector, and obviously they find synergies together. But you'd also be amazed at what synergies they find across the different verticals as well, ways that they can collaborate and improve, improve opportunities for everyone. Entrepreneurs put together in a room is a magical thing to behold. It's I often joke it's like putting two cats in a bag. You end up with kittens.
Little businesses running everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Just can't stop ourselves. So
hopefully they don't scratch your eyes out. Yeah.
Exactly. Nice. So I'll get into it later. So my curiosity obviously goes to, so do you have any of those for marketing? Because that seems to be, to me, a huge one, but it's also in a weird sort of way, also kind of receding, in my opinion, because I think IT might take over.
Yeah, I mean, obviously digital marketing and direct marketing are taking over from perhaps traditional print ad and that sort of area. I'm amazed that the traditional advertising agency model still actually functions. I mean, I think it's still something like 80% of all ad spend is done on Madison Avenue.
Really?
Which is frightening, yeah, when you consider that, it really is a throw enough shit at the wall and some of it will stick strategy compared to online or digital, which is so measurable and deliverable and everything else. But right. I think there's obviously a lot of long champagne fueled lunches that seal those deals. So
I've got to move to Manhattan. That's
I'm sure it will wash out or snap back at some point. But I've been amazed how long that's survived because it's already been disrupted. It's just kind of waiting to die, I think. But no, advertising agencies are, I mean, obviously, look, if you take the top 200 marketing companies in the world, 198 of them are roll-ups of companies. So including the four big ones, WPP, Omnicom, Publicis, Dentsu, they're all groups of companies. WPP's 2,600 acquisitions. So it's a roll-up in every sense.
That would have been a nice commission, Shankar.
Yeah. So, well, look, the good thing is when you approach agency owners, they're expecting to be bought. That's pretty much their model. I'm going to grow it to this size and somebody will buy me. The problem is once they've sold out to one of the big four, they never want to go there again. And then they start another one and realize that's the only option open to them is to end up going back into the thing that screwed them over last time. I think there are opportunities certainly to roll up. It's a very fragmented space. It's a space that expects to be rolled up. And I think the agglomeration model, which allows people to, paddle their own canoe and drive their own business in the direction that they're driving it in, but with some of the benefits of being a public company, I think it would work extremely well in that sector. I played around in that sector, but we've not had success in putting a group together thus far.
Very cool. So let's talk about IPOs because in my brain, an IPO is a completely different kettle of fish than pretty much anything on the planet. It's like all of a sudden you're thinking different, you're walking different, you're talking different, you're having different conversations. Like it is just a different kettle of fish. So one, what's the fascination with it? And two, where do most people go wrong?
Yeah, so look, I think it's on the entrepreneur's bucket list now.
Right.
Ring that bell at NASDAQ, or to take your company public. It's an achievement. It's something you can be proud of. And I think the misconception for most people is that you go public to raise a lot of money or to exit. And I think that's driven by the fact that the investment banking world makes their money raising money. So they're only interested in companies that want to raise money. And private equity has historically used IPO as an exit route. So they would invest in your company until IPO and then take that money back and go into new private companies. And so I think in people's consciousness, they think of it as an exit. Well, of course, for the entrepreneur, it's not an exit. It's actually, I think the better way to look at it is it's the start of the journey, not the end. So in fact, if you look at the biggest companies in the world, their exponential growth started after they went public. So Jeff Bezos and Amazon, Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, or Sergey Brin and Google, or Elon Musk and Tesla, and so on and so on. So many stories like that. Steve Jobs and Apple. They go public, and then the public company becomes their platform to really grow because they can attract capital more easily. They can attract the best talent in the world. They have enormous credibility now when they go into pitch clients. They get better terms from suppliers and from banks and everything. It really does take the business up a significant level. Now that comes with some downsides. There's a lot more transparency, a lot more reporting. You have to stop sticking the nanny through the payroll. There's a few things that.
Can I still write my dog off as security?
but on balance, I think the juice is worth the squeeze. So right. if it's right for them, it's right for them. So I think there's some real advantages. The thing I really like about it, because I like buying businesses and I don't like borrowing money from banks or taking on loads of investment to buy businesses, is that you can issue effectively tradable securities like a currency. So when you're a public company, you have your shares and your share price. So I'm just looking at one of my companies here now, CMG. It's on the Paris Euronext, and I can see the ticker, and it's €7 today, and the market cap is 212 million euros. Well, if I wanted to buy another company, I could issue another 100 million euros of stock at €7 a share and give that to another company in consideration for their business. So I would then acquire a €100 million company without having to find any money. Now, as long as my public company is trading at a higher multiple of earnings than I'm paying them for their private company, there's an earnings per share increase. They call it an accretive acquisition. So you can have this exponential impact on shareholder value by doing these acquisitions. And so, that's the bit I like, is that you can now go out and do stuff without needing money.
That is awesome. You just took creative accounting to a whole new level for me.
Yeah.
Like, that is brilliant. Absolutely. Okay, so super fun. And sorry, my brain just went pop. I was absolutely listening to everything you said, and everything I was thinking in the background just went, are you paying attention to this?
You're just making your company public mentally.
You're right. It's like, I'm already ringing the bell. I'm totally there. So give us a Cinderella story of one of the companies that you're working with.
So look, let's do the clean tech business. So literally this was it was founded by a guy who's got 20 years experience in the eco kind of green construction space, but for very large companies. So for very large companies in Europe. And then the head of battery technology from Formula One team. Obviously the Formula One teams, when was it when they had the last engine round? Anyway, the previous engine to the one they have now was the first time they went hybrid. And so all the Formula One teams had to invest a huge amount in understanding battery and electric technology. And so they've created this amazing technology suite, which is a hydrogen fuel cell, a solar canopy that you can put pretty much anywhere, and using this battery technology. So they can replicate things like the Tesla solar roof, but for half the price and 30% more efficient. They can create off-grid charging solutions, off-grid power solutions for things they're doing. For example, right now they're changing all of the signal points on the Saudi Arabian railway which currently all run on diesel generators that just chug away 24/7, spitting out carbon dioxide in the middle of the desert. They can put in these little boxes that have no moving parts, that almost never need to be serviced, that will run the power on those lines for the next 40 years. They've got some really, really cool solutions. So we took that company public in November last year on the Paris Euronext. So far, obviously we're aiming to identify other companies that we would acquire into that business. So far, lots of people are buying the shares and trading it. It's called CMG Cleantech, ticker's MLCMG, for anyone that wants into that kind of thing. It's a really exciting opportunity. BlackRock reckon that the next 1,000 unicorns will be in the clean energy space, and I can't disagree that the demand is incredible. Obviously, at the time of recording this, there's a catastrophe going on in Eastern Europe, which has really brought everyone's focus to energy security going forwards, and not being reliant on crazy dictatorships to buy oil and gas. And so decarbonizing the economy is now no longer just about the climate change argument. It's now a matter of sort of national security as well, and not emboldening your enemies. So I think it's going to be even further up the agenda, because perhaps the people that might have been typically against the climate change agenda are definitely on board with the World War III agenda, so or preventing World War III agenda. So I think you can pretty much get a unanimous vote now for clean and renewable energies, which has got to be good news for the planet.
Very cool. And absolutely adored the green conversation. And as somebody that's not high up in politics and has no power whatsoever, the whole idea of not having anything that runs without being attached to a government switch terrifies shit on me. But we'll go there another day. Right now we're talking mergers and acquisitions. We're going to have fun with this. So, and I love the creativity, and I love, especially in Dubai. I mean, I haven't been there for, God, it's probably been a decade now, and it has changed immensely since I've been there. But the innovation there, to me, was fantastic, because there was almost no amount of money that couldn't be thrown at a problem. Somebody goes, I want a building where every floor moves, and they're like, yeah, we can do that. It's like,
I think the thing that really attracted me to Dubai is it's the epitome of entrepreneurship, because it's a shining example of making the impossible possible, which is what entrepreneurs do kind of every day before breakfast. For people that don't know it, I think everyone has this crazy misconception about what Dubai is and what it stands for. And I would just say to all of those people, come and get out of the airport, come and see the city, because you would not believe how cosmopolitan, modern, liberal not in the US, Canada sense of the word, because it's you have a different definition. Liberal as in kind of open, free, and live and let live kind of attitude that's here. It does not meet with the online reputation, or perhaps the word of mouth reputation that it often gets. It really is one of the most comfortable, safe, relaxed places that you can live. And I mean, it has one of the lowest crime rates in the world, has a booming economy, very low taxes, everything functions, great medical care, incredible connections. Time zone is slap bang in the middle of the world, so I can speak to people like you in Canada without having to get up at stupid times in the morning like I did in Asia. It really ticks an awful lot of boxes. So it's fantastic.
Right, I absolutely adored it, and it's one of the few places on the planet where you can rent a yacht for the weekend affordably.
Possibly, yeah.
That is awesome. I love it.
I've tried that here.
What?
No, I have lots of friends with yachts. Why would I rent one?
Oh, fine. Be that way. Fine. That's hilarious. So I know that our listeners are going to want more from you. How do they start their journey with you?
Yeah, look, I've got no particular axe to grind. If you would like to find more about M&A, because I think this is a fascinating journey, and I think it's a really interesting area of entrepreneurship. But I also recognize it's not for everybody. I've had arguments with entrepreneurs before about the fact I don't make anything, apart from money. And they feel like, that's not real entrepreneurship because I'm, not the, but I think, entrepreneurship is about creative problem solving. And I think one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs have is creating their own financial freedom. And I think once they've created their own financial freedom, they then go on and solve some of the biggest problems in the world. If you look at entrepreneurs that have become, financially wealthy in the first generation, old money is kind of a bit toxic, and we need to figure out how we deal with that. But new money is actually incredibly generous, is fixing some of the biggest problems we have in the world, and empowering entrepreneurs through wealth, I think, is probably the greatest gift we can give to the planet, because that's how we fix homelessness. It's probably how we cure cancer. It's probably how we solve some of the greatest challenges that we face, is motivated entrepreneurs with money. They're going to find the solutions to these things. So I'm very much into that democratizing wealth kind of concept of entrepreneurship. And I don't believe you can get wealthy stuck in a business, bringing customers every day. I think you need to get on your business and create wealth by creating capital events. If people want to find more, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, so Jeremy J. Harbour on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, Jeremy Harbour. I spell it as in the English way, Harbour. Lots of people, I've got lots of members in my community, the Harbour Club, which are these sort of rabid deal makers running around the world doing all sorts of crazy transactions, which is all good fun. There's a Harbour Club channel on YouTube. There's a website, harbourclubevents.com, where you can see stuff that we're up to there. I would highly recommend just go to jeremyharbour.com, have a read of some of the stuff there. I've published a few books. If you want to read Go Do Deals, that's all about what we've been talking about today. There's another book called Agglomerate, From Idea to IPO in 12 Months, which covers some of the go public stuff. Just read and research a little bit and see if it's something that gets you excited. And if it gets you excited, then you can dash down the rabbit hole. If not, then go back to the 4-hour work week or whatever you were reading before.
That's awesome. So I did want to ask you, who are your favorite clients, or what are you looking for right now in a potential client? Like, what's your absolute sweet spot?
Yeah, there isn't really. So the great thing about doing deals is that people always ask me what's my favorite deal, and of course it's always the next one. It's a bit like a cocaine addict, I guess. They're waiting for the next one and the next one and the next one. And it's exciting from that perspective, because you're always doing something different. You're dealing with different people. You're learning different things and understanding different industries. And so I love that dynamism and change, and I love solving problems. So businesses that are doing more than $1 million a year in profit and in a really interesting place are very interesting to me, because I can help them grow. I can help them go public and help them do stuff. That's pretty much my sweet spot within the Harbour Club community. I mean, I don't get involved in sort of the sales side of that, but certainly, entrepreneurial people, they don't necessarily need to be entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurial people who are looking to learn how to do deals and execute deals for buying private companies. And the focus we have there is, how do you buy companies without bank loans or loads of lawyers' bills or loads of cash up front. So it's creative deal structures. For people that want to find out about that kind of stuff, then they should reach out, because the Harbour Club community is a really great group of people, and it's a very collegiate and collaborative place. And so, it's not one of these things where we keep selling you stuff and there's all these upsells and gold, diamond, platinum clubs and things you can join. And it's just a single membership for life, and an online community, an app where everybody collaborates. And we do live events and things. I just did one in London. We have one in Boston coming up, actually, so not so far from you, where we call them Deal Fest, which is where we get 3 days of case studies from members going through deals that they've done, what went right, what went wrong, all the warts and wrinkles. Fantastic networking. The one in London, I think it's the first live event we've done in a couple of years because of COVID. So the bar action was pretty full on. I had to turn in quite early every night because it was everyone was quite excited to be out in public, I think.
Right. The whole world let loose.
I did tell them there's a law of diminishing returns when you're in the bar, because it starts off with networking and very quickly moves to not working.
Yeah, exactly. And any networking you had done, you probably forgot what you had done. Exactly, so that is a moot point altogether. That's no fun. You have been awesome and amazing, and I absolutely will have to have you back because I think there's so many areas that we can go into this, and entrepreneurs need you, and you're preaching to the choir. I personally think that the way to get the mass population to empower themselves and start taking control of issues that are going on is quit listening to propaganda and start becoming an entrepreneur and start solving problems. So
Absolutely.
love.
Yeah,
So I have
and look, I'm telling people all the time as well, don't get lost in, look, politics makes you angry. Don't get lost in politics. Don't go on rants and just focus on yourself. Get on with life, get on with business. And you can still be angry about that shit. Just don't waste too much time.
Exactly.
Unless
you're a politician, there's just
no up fairly soon.
Well, you don't have a bottle under the desk? Come on.
No, it's downstairs, unfortunately.
Oh, fair enough. So you alluded to it earlier, but I would love to know a little bit more of the story. Is at what point in life did you know that you were that special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
I did it from scratch. So 7 years old, I was cutting flowers down in my mum's garden and putting them in jam jars and trying to sell them outside the front door. So it was something genetic that was in there that just meant that I was really, not destined for anything else. So it was definitely, I think, a nature, not nurture scenario.
That's so cute. My son did the same thing, and I'm like, I hope that those are either from our garden or from the back alley, not from other people's gardens.
Yeah, no,
they might not be happy about that.
It put my parents in a very difficult position. Do you chastise or do you, encourage? It's quite, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I now know being a parent, they had no fucking idea what they were doing because I don't. It's one of the things, you have infinitely more respect for your parents once you have kids. Because we've got Google, so when one of ours goes blue, we can Google it. When back then they had nothing.
We just look at them and go, "Stop it! Stop! I don't know what you're doing, but stop it."
I hope you don't die.
Awesome, Jeremy. You've been fabulous. Any last words for our peeps?
No, look, just get out there and take action, because it's all well and good listening to great podcasts and things like this, and information is key. You've got to always be, nurturing yourself with new information, but action is the differentiator. So getting out and doing something, I just highly recommend.
Awesome. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being here with us today. If you know anyone who would make a great guest for the show, or if you have a question or topic you'd like me to discuss, reach out to me at michelle@awarenessstrategies.com or LinkedIn or Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to our show. I'm all about being a resource center for entrepreneurs to give them the information and the support that they need to make it in business. As such, the notes for this show can be found at our website at awarenessstrategies.com/blog. Be sure to subscribe, give us a rating. I like 5 stars personally, and share with your friends.